Hello, this is Mr. Smith, and this is Honors Economics December-January daily participation. Please click on Submit or Resubmit, and a text box will open up, and you can type in 3 significant items from today's lesson. Labor and earnings. And so the question is, how do wages compensate for differences in job characteristics? Why do people with more education earn higher wages? Why are wages sometimes above their equilibrium values? Because they're not always at that point where supply and demand intersect. Why is it difficult to measure discrimination? It still happens on an individual basis. De jure or by law discrimination has been gotten rid of, but there obviously are still individuals that are going to participate in discriminatory practices. When might the market solve the problem of discrimination? So is it possible for the private sector to efficiently get rid of that? And when might it not do that? So these are all questions that can be taken into consideration. Some of them are more easy to answer than others. And if we look at different types of jobs, obviously that leads us to see that some are paid more than others. And there's also some differences in the earnings between different groups of people that take place. For instance, the U.S. median weekly earnings by occupation in the first decade of the 2000s, you can see some jobs pay a lot more. For instance, chief executives or CEOs were making a weekly earning of $1,875. Servers or waiters and waitresses, $363, and maids and housekeeping was $355. So obviously we can see the higher you go on that list, when it comes to earnings, the more education and training that you need, the more skill that you need to have. So it's going to be a lot higher. We also look at the differences between genders, and we look at their average weekly earnings. And there are some that there are pretty big differences. So chief executives, for instance, the weekly earnings for men is $1,907, but women is $1,422. So the men are above average, women are below average. Other areas, and that of course is about a 34% difference. Other areas it's more hard to measure because there aren't really a lot of people from one gender or another that are in that particular occupation. And then there's at least one where the pay differential swings the other way. For instance, the secretaries that are male typically earn $559 a week, while women earn $584. So it's actually a 4.3% spread in favor of women in that one particular case. But in all the other ones, it leans a little bit in the other direction. When you get to the higher level, high skilled jobs like chief executive or airline pilot, or even the education administrator, you see a bigger differential between men and women in favor of men. But when you get to the lower skill level areas, you see that difference isn't as large. For instance, with maids and housekeeping, it's only a 16.1% difference. Waiters and waitresses, it's only 15.2%. Now, there are other factors that go into this. For instance, do women take time off for family and children, and does that lower their lifetime earnings, which then lowers their average weekly earning? Or is it just because there isn't a significant amount of women that want to go into this particular job? But we have to remember, in competitive markets, the wages workers earn equal the value of their marginal products, their marginal productivity, which we talked about in the previous lesson. So there are many factors that affect productivity and wages. One of the things that economists look at are compensating differentials. Compensating differentials is a difference in wages that arises to offset the non-monetary characteristics of different jobs. These include unpleasantness, difficulty, safety. For instance, coal miners and firefighters, or night shift workers. Those would all be examples of those compensating differentials. Greater ability or effort often earn people higher pay. These traits increase the worker's marginal product, making them more valuable. Wages also are affected by chance. For instance, new discoveries no one could have predicted might make some occupations obsolete and increase demand for others. So there are jobs that exist today, and we have no idea that maybe 10 or 20 years from now, a discovery will be made that will make that job obsolete, therefore eliminating the demand for that job. So the last people doing it, the wages will drop and drop and drop. And then, of course, that will increase demand for labor in some other area that might have replaced that particular occupation or industry. So ability, effort, and chance are difficult, of course, to measure, so it's often hard to get some type of quantity related to those particular variables. They're important, though, to pay attention to because they often provide an explanation, even if it is through more abstract models than actually being able to crunch the numbers. For instance, one of the studies that's been done in the past has been the benefits of beauty. Obviously, there are workplace instances where people say, hey, this person is better looking. That's the only reason why they got a promotion or pay. But we often have to look at deeper than just accusations and find statistics in order to prove things. So there are a couple of hypotheses that can be come up with. One, of course, would be discrimination. That's what often people assume. Others is that good looks matter for productivity. In jobs where appearance is important, attractive workers are more valuable to a firm and command higher pay. Or good looks indirectly relate to ability. People who make more of an effort to project an attractive appearance might therefore also be harder workers. So those are all hypotheses that you can come up with. And so you do have instances where there is evidence to show that, in fact, people do, if they put forth more effort into getting dressed, for instance, putting on a suit every day, that they probably take a lot of pride and satisfaction in their work and therefore are harder working, which might be why they get promotions or they earn more pay. Then there's the superstar phenomenon. This goes along with kind of like when we talked about monopolistic competition or oligopolies, how branding or an image that is projected for a certain item makes it more valuable, and so that happens as well. And this includes celebrities. They might not be the best actor, but for some odd reason, they have this branding, this image of themselves that makes them more attractive to people, either their physically or their personality, their fun. And that's why you see a lot of actors and actresses and musicians and athletes go on talk shows and they make fools of themselves by playing little games and other types of things to make themselves seem fun. It makes them more popular. Their agents are always telling them, get yourself out there, market yourself, make yourself more attractive and valuable so we can get better deals and more offers. But that also works with non-professionally entertaining people as well. For instance, carpenters, plumbers, people that sell their services and go to people's homes to do work. If their name, if their brand, if their technique, if their respect, if their personality is better known, then they'll be able to command a better price out of the labor market. So every customer in the market wants to enjoy the good that is supplied by the best producer. And the good is produced with some type of technique or technology or market strategy that allows the best producer to supply that to the customers, hopefully at a lower cost to them, but of course they can also charge more from the actual customer. And whenever we're looking at things like human capital, the accumulation of investment in people, in the people themselves, the education, the on-the-job training, the enhancement of talent, human capital can also affect productivity and thus labor and wages. And so that's where we're looking at this chart on the right here. We can see weekly earnings of full-time employed persons aged 25 and greater by education. There you can see the weekly earnings of less than high school, 494, high school diploma, 679, some college or associate, 782, bachelor's degree only, 1,155, and advanced degree, 1,435. So we can see as the education level goes up, we see a higher level of earning. And when we look at skill sets, we can break them up into 4 categories. Unskilled people are those that require virtually no training at all. They can be shown how to do a job in just a few minutes. And typically they are at the lower end of this scale. And typically, unless your job is incredibly dangerous or unpleasant or something, they're probably going to earn the lowest wages. Semi-skilled people are those that require a minimal amount of training to run simple machinery. And then you have skilled labor that can have more, I don't want to say more advanced training, but a certain level of training, it might take weeks or months. And they can run more complex machinery, and they can do so without supervision. And then there's professional people, which would be from these last 3 categories here in particular, especially the last 2. And that would be people that require advanced education that lasts years And they are expected not only to work without supervision, but they can be creative and come up with their own projects or basically spur on their own productivity at their own pace. And so they typically earn the highest wages. Now, of course, just something to mention, once again, going back to the compensating differentials. If a job is dangerous, they could have less than a high school diploma. It could be an unskilled job, but if it's incredibly dangerous, no one else wants to do it, then it can be higher in pay.